The Nightcrawler, earthworm. The Nightcrawler is the undisputed universal biological currency of the freshwater ecosystem. It is an annelid worm completely devoid of defense mechanisms, making it an irresistible, high-protein target for absolutely every predatory fish that swims. Its lethal effectiveness lies in its pure, agonizing biological response to water and steel. When pierced and submerged, the Nightcrawler does not drown quietly. It violently writhes and contorts, creating low-frequency acoustic vibrations that trigger the lateral lines of nearby predators. More importantly, as it struggles, its porous skin secretes a potent trail of natural amino acids and bodily fluids into the water column. This chemical distress signal acts as an olfactory beacon, drawing in scavengers and apex hunters alike. Whether threaded tightly onto a bottom rig for massive catfish or hooked lightly through the nose to undulate freely in the current for suspended bass, the Nightcrawler exploits the most primal, opportunistic feeding instincts of fish. It is the rawest form of bait, relying purely on the irresistible allure of helpless, bleeding flesh trapped in an alien aquatic environment. Live minnow, baitfish. The live baitfish, or minnow, is a weapon of pure kinetic desperation. By harnessing a living, breathing prey item, the angler outsources the deception directly to nature. The mechanical perfection of this bait lies in the involuntary biological signals of panic. A healthy minnow swims with a smooth, rhythmic cadence, but when tethered to a hook and dropped into open water, its movements become frantic, erratic, and deeply distressed. This abnormal vibration profile is instantly detected by the highly evolved sensory organs of gamefish, like pike, walleye, and monster bass. Furthermore, the silvery scales act as natural strobe lights, violently reflecting ambient sunlight as the bait struggles against the unforgiving tension of the fishing line. Hooked delicately behind the dorsal fin to maintain its upright swimming posture, or directly through both lips to endure heavy currents, the minnow is forced to continuously broadcast its own vulnerability. It is a live-action simulation of the brutal food chain, forcing massive predators to react instantly to the sight of a wounded, isolated, and utterly defenseless biological target struggling in the vast, dark void. Live leech. The live leech is the ultimate anatomical anomaly of the bait world, a blood-sucking parasite repurposed into a lethal hypnotic weapon. Unlike minnows that rely on frantic, panicked vibrations, the leech operates on an entirely different hydrodynamic principle. Its muscular, ribbon-like body possesses no bones, allowing it to stretch, contract, and undulate with a mesmerizing fluid grace that mechanical soft plastics can only dream of imitating. The true terror of the leech lies in its resilience and its chemical composition. They are incredibly tough, able to survive brutal casts and freezing water temperatures that would instantly paralyze other live baits. As they swim, stretching out into long, dark ribbons and contracting back into tight balls, they secrete natural biological slime that drives species like walleye and smallmouth bass into a feeding frenzy. Hooked lightly through their tough, muscular suction cup at the tail end, they are forced to constantly swim away from the hook in an exhausting, never-ending struggle. It is a bait that thrives on slow, methodical presentations, utilizing its own parasitic biology to trigger violent, unhesitating strikes from the shadows. The live crayfish, crawdad. The live crayfish is heavily armored, aggressive, and universally hunted. It is the aquatic equivalent of high-value, heavily defended infantry. For bottom-dwelling predators, discovering a crayfish is not just finding a meal. It is a caloric gold mine packed with essential proteins and calcium. To weaponize this crustacean, anglers must exploit its natural defensive behaviors. When rigged carefully through the thick, muscular tail segment, the crayfish is forced to swim backwards in panicked, erratic bursts, fleeing from the heavy sinker dragging behind it. The true predatory trigger, however, occurs when the bait reaches the bottom. Instinctively, a hooked crayfish will spin around, plant its tail in the mud, and raise its massive claws in a futile defensive posture. To a massive smallmouth bass or a monstrous river catfish, this defiant stance is the ultimate biological provocation. The bass will violently inhale the entire crustacean, relying on the crushing power of its pharyngeal teeth to shatter the exoskeleton in a fraction of a second. It is a brutal, crunching display of predatory dominance, exploiting the crustacean's desperate instinct to fight back against the inevitable. Cutbait, bloody fish chunks. When targeting the absolute largest, most ancient scavengers and apex predators in the deep channels, stealth and vibration become irrelevant. The hunt becomes purely chemical. Cutbait is the deliberate mutilation of fresh bait fish, chopped into bloody slabs specifically engineered to create a massive, overwhelming olfactory slick. By physically exposing the internal organs, dense muscle fibers, and rich, oily blood of species like shad, skipjack, or massive coastal bunker, the angler bypasses the fish's lateral lines and targets their hypersensitive olfactory bulbs. In the pitch-black abyss of a muddy river or the crushing depths of the ocean surf, visibility is zero. Monster catfish and massive sharks rely entirely on tasting the water. As the currents wash over the bloody chunk of flesh, an invisible highway of amino acids and proteins is carried downstream. The predator locks onto this chemical trail, tracking it with terrifying slow-motion precision directly back to the source. Rigged on a massive, heavy-gauge circle hook, cutbait is not a tool for finesse. It is an unapologetic, gruesome offering of torn flesh designed to summon the true monsters that lurk in the absolute darkness. The live frog. The live frog is a biomechanical masterpiece of amphibian muscle, repurposed as the ultimate topwater distress signal. While artificial hollow-body frogs glide seamlessly over the lily pads, the living amphibian relies on pure, chaotic physical displacement to draw monsters from the deep. An angler lightly hooks the frog through the muscular tissue of its upper thigh or lips, deploying it directly into the perilous transition zones where dense aquatic vegetation meets open water. The frog's biological response is to attempt a desperate escape, utilizing its incredibly powerful hind legs to kick frantically against the water's surface. This rhythmic, splashing propulsion generates heavy, low-frequency shock waves that resonate straight down into the murky abyss. To a massive, territorial largemouth bass or a toothy northern pike, this specific acoustic signature screams of extreme vulnerability. The predator will silently stalk the struggling amphibian from below, tracking the concentric ripples. The resulting strike is a heart-stopping, violent surface detonation, as the water explodes and the predator engulfs the struggling amphibian in a display of pure, unadulterated aquatic violence. Grubs and maggots. In the brutal, freezing environments of ice fishing or high-altitude alpine streams, massive baits are ignored by predators whose metabolisms have ground to a near-complete halt. Enter the maggot and the grub, the microscopic, high-fat biological engines of the insect world. These larval forms are soft, defenseless, and packed with an incredibly dense concentration of lipids and proteins. Because they are so small, they require incredibly specialized ultralight tackle and microscopic hooks forged from wire as thin as a human hair. Anglers typically thread multiple maggots onto a single hook, creating a terrifying, writhing ball of pale flesh called a Medusa rig. The lethal trigger of this bait is its continuous, involuntary microcontractions. Even in near-freezing water temperatures, the maggots continue to pulse and squeeze, emitting a subtle but continuous visual and vibrational distress signal. Cautious, lethargic predators like massive trout or panfish, unwilling to expend the energy required to chase a fast-moving minnow, will slowly approach and silently vacuum the writhing cluster into their mouths. It is an exercise in extreme finesse, weaponizing the larvae of flies to conquer the cold. The bloodworm, marine annelid. The bloodworm is the stuff of absolute saltwater nightmares, a venomous, predatory marine annelid that commands a premium price for its unparalleled effectiveness in the ocean surf. This is not a harmless garden earthworm. It is an armored, aggressive carnivore equipped with a hidden, irreversible proboscis that shoots out of its head, revealing 4 terrifying black fangs capable of delivering a painful, venomous bite directly to the angler. Its lethality as bait stems from its hyperpigmented, copper-based blood. When sliced or pierced by a thick saltwater hook, the worm bleeds profusely, releasing an intensely dark red, highly concentrated protein slick into the violent ocean currents. This specific chemical signature is an absolute magnet for striped bass, massive flounder, and predatory surf-dwelling species. Furthermore, its thick, leathery skin makes it incredibly durable, allowing it to withstand the brutal, high-speed impact of being cast hundreds of yards past the crashing breakers. It is a hostile, dangerous biological weapon that forces the angler to bleed an aggressive predator just to catch an even larger, more violent one in the chaotic darkness of the crushing ocean surf.